My name is Bonita Reynolds, a 32-year-old senior marketing strategist at a rapidly growing tech company. I spent 6 months developing the perfect global expansion strategy, pouring my heart and soul into every detail. Then came that stomach-dropping moment when I saw my entire work in Diana Harper's presentation, slides with her name plastered across it. Everyone knew it was mine. What they didn't expect was my response when they asked if I would stop her. Let me know where you're watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button as I share how sometimes letting someone dig their own grave is the sweetest revenge. My journey to becoming a senior marketing strategist wasn't exactly a straight path. After graduating with a business degree from University of California, Berkeley, I spent 2 years bouncing between entry-level marketing positions at smaller companies. I was ambitious but lacked direction until I discovered my passion for brand development and market expansion strategies. There's something deeply satisfying about analyzing market trends, identifying opportunities, and crafting a vision for how a company can grow into new territories. That passion eventually led me to Apex Technologies 3 years ago. We're not the biggest name in the tech industry, but we've been growing at an impressive rate of 20 to 30% annually. Our innovative cloud security solutions have been gaining traction in the North American market, and the company had its sights set on global expansion. That's where my expertise became particularly valuable. During my first year at Apex, I helped increase our market share by 12% through targeted campaigns that really resonated with our core audience of mid-sized businesses. By the second year, I was leading a small team focused on market penetration strategies for different industry sectors. We managed to break into the healthcare vertical, which had previously seemed impenetrable due to strict regulatory requirements. That success put me on the radar of upper management and earned me a promotion to senior strategist with a 15% salary increase. The culture at Apex is what you might expect from a growing tech company: competitive, fast-paced, and demanding. Everyone is expected to prove their worth continuously. There's a saying among employees, "You're only as good as your last win." This creates an environment where you're constantly pushing yourself, which can be both exhilarating and exhausting. The pressure never really subsides, but I thrived on it. At least I did until Diana Harper entered the picture. Let me tell you about the key players in this story. First, there's Taylor Williams, my closest colleague and friend at the company. We joined Apex within months of each other and quickly bonded over late-night strategy sessions and shared frustration with corporate politics. Taylor works in product development, so our departments often collaborate closely. I've never met someone more loyal or supportive. When everything went down with Diana, Taylor was my rock. Diana Harper is the executive marketing director who joined the company 6 months ago. She came from a larger competitor with an impressive resume and confident demeanor that immediately commanded respect. In her early 40s, impeccably dressed, and never seen without her signature red lipstick, Diana portrayed herself as a mentor to younger women in the company. Initially, I was excited to work with her and learn from her experience. That excitement didn't last long. James Caldwell is our Chief Financial Officer, a numbers guy through and through. He's been with the company since its early days and has a reputation for being incredibly detail-oriented and somewhat intimidating. James expects everyone to know their metrics inside and out. Present something without solid financial backing, and he'll tear it apart without mercy. He's fair but demanding, and winning his approval is considered a major achievement. Sofia Rodriguez is our Chief Technology Officer and one of the most respected figures in the company. Unlike some executives who lose touch with the technical aspects as they climb the corporate ladder, Sofia remains deeply involved in product development. She values expertise and gives credit where it's due, which makes her well-liked throughout the organization, despite her high standards. Then there's our CEO, Richard Thompson. A visionary leader who built Apex from the ground up, Richard is known for appreciating creativity and expertise. He's less concerned with hierarchy and more interested in ideas that can move the company forward. I've always admired how he can cut through the noise in meetings and focus on what really matters. Richard expects excellence, but rewards it generously when he sees it. Now, about the project that would eventually lead to this whole mess. About 8 months ago, Richard announced at an all-hands meeting that Apex was ready to make its move into international markets. The goal was ambitious: establish a significant presence in Europe and Asia within 5 years while maintaining our growth in North America. This would require a comprehensive strategy covering everything from market analysis to localization approaches, partnership opportunities, regulatory navigation, and culture-specific marketing tactics. Given the scope and importance of this initiative, everyone knew it would be career-defining for whoever took the lead. When my department head nominated me to develop the global marketing strategy component, I was both honored and terrified. This was the biggest opportunity of my career, a chance to really make my mark. I had no idea that this opportunity would eventually put me on a collision course with corporate politics at its worst. The global strategy project was unlike anything I'd worked on before. It wasn't just about marketing, it was about positioning our entire company for success in vastly different markets with unique challenges. The stakes were enormous. If successful, Apex could potentially triple its valuation within 5 years. If we failed, we'd waste millions of dollars and potentially damage our brand in markets where second chances are rare. I was officially appointed as the project lead for the marketing strategy component, which meant coordinating with teams across the organization to ensure alignment. The announcement came during a department meeting, and while most colleagues congratulated me, I noticed a few forced smiles. Being selected for such a high-visibility project inevitably creates some jealousy, but I tried not to let it bother me. I was too excited about the opportunity to worry about office politics. Diana Harper, who had been with the company for just 2 months at this point, made a big show of supporting my appointment. "Bonita is exactly the right person for this," she announced to everyone. "I'll make sure she has whatever resources she needs." Coming from the new executive, this public endorsement felt like a powerful vote of confidence. In private, she was equally encouraging. "This is your chance to shine, Bonita. I see great potential in you, and I want to help you develop it." Our early meetings were productive and positive. Diana listened attentively to my preliminary ideas, asking insightful questions and offering valuable perspectives from her previous experience with international markets. She seemed to genuinely respect my expertise and approach to the project. We established a weekly check-in schedule, and she introduced me to some of her industry contacts who had valuable insights about European markets. I threw myself into the project with everything I had. Most nights, I was still at the office long after most people had gone home, poring over market research reports and analyzing competitor strategies in various regions. I created detailed spreadsheets tracking everything from cultural preferences to regulatory requirements across different countries. My apartment became a disaster zone of sticky notes and whiteboards as I mapped out different approaches. The research phase alone was exhausting. I had to understand not just market sizes and competitor positions, but also cultural nuances that would affect how our products were perceived and used. Security needs and expectations vary significantly between, say, Germany and Japan, and our messaging would need to reflect that. I conducted dozens of interviews with industry experts and potential customers in various regions to gain first-hand insights. Despite Diana's promises of resources, I quickly ran into limitations. My requests for additional research budget were delayed or reduced. The translation services I needed for some materials were deemed too expensive at this stage. The timeline was also incredibly tight, with the board expecting a comprehensive strategy within 6 months. Throughout these early challenges, Diana remained superficially supportive while becoming increasingly hands-on. She began requesting daily updates instead of our agreed weekly ones. She wanted to see every document, every email draft, every piece of research I collected. At first, I interpreted this as genuine interest and engagement with the project. I even felt flattered by her attention. About 2 months into the project, Taylor pulled me aside after a meeting. "Be careful with Diana," Taylor warned. "I've heard stories from my friend at her previous company. She has a reputation for taking credit for other people's work, especially women who report to her. I dismissed the warning at the time. That's just office gossip, I replied. Diana's been nothing but supportive. Besides, this project is too important and too visible for anyone to try something like that. Taylor gave me a skeptical look. Just watch your back, Bonita. Document everything. Keep records of all your work, and make sure other people know your contributions. I nodded politely, but didn't take the warning seriously. I've always believed in focusing on doing good work rather than playing political games. I trusted in the meritocracy of the workplace, that excellence would be recognized and rewarded. Looking back, I was naive about the realities of corporate politics, especially at the executive level, but that naivety wouldn't last much longer. For the next 6 months, the global expansion strategy consumed my life entirely. I poured every ounce of my expertise, creativity, and energy into developing a comprehensive approach that would position Apex for international success. The strategy wasn't just about marketing messages. It encompassed everything from market entry sequencing to localization priorities, partnership models, and metrics for measuring success across different cultural contexts. The personal sacrifices piled up quickly. I missed my best friend's 30th birthday celebration because I was completing the European market analysis section. My boyfriend and I broke up after I canceled our anniversary dinner for the 3rd time due to last-minute requests from Diana. My apartment became more of a storage space than a home, as I spent most of my waking hours at the office or traveling for research. My health took a hit, too. I lost 8 pounds simply because I frequently forgot to eat, and stress-induced insomnia became my new normal. But despite these sacrifices, I felt energized by the work itself. There's a certain thrill in tackling complex problems and seeing patterns and opportunities emerge. I remember one particularly breakthrough moment at 3 in the morning when I realized we could leverage our North American banking sector's success as a gateway to the similar but less saturated Japanese financial market. These moments of clarity made the exhaustion worthwhile. The data gathering process was particularly challenging. Getting reliable information about security software needs in emerging markets required creativity and persistence. In some countries, potential clients were reluctant to discuss security concerns with outsiders. I developed specialized interview techniques and anonymous survey methods to overcome these barriers, resulting in insights our competitors hadn't uncovered. My contribution to the strategy included several innovative elements that I was particularly proud of. Instead of the traditional region-by-region rollout most companies used, I proposed a sector-based approach that would target the same types of businesses across different countries simultaneously. This would allow us to build specialized expertise faster and create cross-border reference customers. I also developed a security culture index for different markets that would help prioritize our messaging around either technological sophistication or ease of implementation, depending on the local context. As my work progressed and the strategy took shape, Diana's behavior began to change subtly. The warning signs were there, though I didn't recognize them for what they were at the time. First came the daily update demands. What started as casual check-ins evolved into formalized reporting requirements. I need detailed progress reports every morning, Diana instructed. The executive team is asking me for constant updates, and I need to be prepared. This seemed reasonable enough, so I complied, though it added another layer to my already overwhelming workload. Then came the directional shifts. Diana would suddenly question aspects of the strategy that we had previously agreed upon. I'm not sure about this sector-based approach, she said during month 4, though she had enthusiastically supported it earlier. Let's explore a regional model as well. This meant redoing significant portions of work with no clear rationale. By month 5, Diana began excluding me from certain meetings about the project. It's just a high-level executive discussion, she explained. They speak a different language up there, all about shareholder value and board expectations. I'll represent our work. Again, this seemed plausible, if slightly concerning. I still trusted that she was advocating for my strategy. The most alarming sign came during a video call with potential partners in Germany. Diana introduced herself as the architect of our global strategy while referring to me as someone who was helping with implementation details. I felt a sting of indignation, but rationalized it as a simple miscommunication. Perhaps in the context of speaking to external partners, it made sense for the executive to position herself as the leader. Taylor noticed these patterns before I fully acknowledged them. After observing a meeting where Diana presented my market analysis without mentioning my contribution, Taylor confronted me again. "She's setting the stage to take credit for your work, Bonita. Can't you see it? She's gradually repositioning herself as the creator of the strategy." "You're being paranoid," I replied, though with less conviction than before. "She's just doing her job as the department leader." "When was the last time she contributed any actual substance to the strategy?" Taylor pressed. "Any original ideas or meaningful revisions?" The question gave me pause. While Diana had been ever-present and demanding throughout the process, her contributions were primarily questions and vague suggestions rather than substantive content. She would say things like, "This section needs more depth," or "Let's make this more impactful," without specific direction on how to do so. Other colleagues began noticing as well. Michael from the product team asked me pointedly after a presentation where Diana had taken center stage, "Does she always speak about your work as if it's hers?" Sarah from legal sent me a sympathetic email. "Just wanted you to know, everyone recognizes this is your strategy, regardless of how it's being presented upstairs." Despite these mounting concerns, I continued to focus on perfecting the strategy itself. I still believed that the quality of my work would speak for itself, that truth and merit would prevail in the end. The strategy was nearly complete, and I was proud of what I had created. It was comprehensive, innovative, and backed by solid research. Even if Diana was positioning herself to share the credit, surely the value of my contribution would be recognized. I had no idea how completely I was underestimating what was about to happen. After 6 grueling months, I finally completed the global expansion strategy. The finished product was a 200-page document with executive summaries, detailed market analyses, phased implementation plans, ROI projections, risk assessments, and beautifully designed visual presentations for the board. I felt an enormous sense of accomplishment as I sent the final version to Diana for her review. "This looks promising, Bonita," was her only response. "Give me some time to review it thoroughly before we move forward." Days passed without substantial feedback. When I asked for updates, Diana replied with vague statements like, "Still reviewing," or "Working through some concerns." This was unusual given her pattern of immediate and detailed responses throughout the project. A week went by, then another. The board presentation was scheduled for the following month, and we needed time to refine the presentation based on her input. Then came the moment that made my blood run cold. I was working late, as usual, when an email notification popped up on my screen. It was an automatic alert from our document management system, informing me that a file I had access to had been modified. The file was titled Global Expansion Strategy Executive Summary, and the system showed it had been edited by Diana Harper. Curious, I opened the document and froze. It was my executive summary, word for word, except for one critical difference. My name had been replaced with Diana's throughout the document. Where it once read Strategy Developed by Bonita Reynolds with input from cross-functional teams, it now read Strategy Developed by Diana Harper with support from Marketing Team. My hands trembled as I searched for more files. The same pattern repeated across every document. My name had been systematically removed and replaced with Diana's. Even more shocking, I discovered an email Diana had sent to the executive team. "Attached is the global strategy I've developed over the past 6 months. I'm excited to present this to the board next week." Next week? The presentation had been moved up without my knowledge. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. The room seemed to spin around me as 6 months of work, my ideas, my research, my late nights, my sacrifices were being claimed by someone else. The betrayal was so blatant, so complete, that I struggled to process it. The next morning, I requested a private meeting with Diana. Despite my roiling emotions, I approached the conversation professionally. Diana, I noticed that my name has been removed from the strategy documents, and you've scheduled the board presentation without discussing it with me, I said, keeping my voice steady. Diana's expression remained impassive. Bonita, I think you're misunderstanding how these things work at the executive level. You provided research and drafts, which is what you were supposed to do as part of your job. As the department head, I'm responsible for the final strategy and its presentation to leadership. But this is my work, I insisted. The entire strategy, from concept to execution, was developed by me. With my guidance and direction, Diana countered smoothly. Listen, Bonita, you're still relatively new to this level of corporate strategy. It's normal for executives to present the work of their teams. That's how it works here. Her condescending tone made my blood boil, but I maintained my composure. I understand that you would present our work, but completely removing my name and claiming sole authorship isn't right. Diana's expression hardened. I think you need to consider your position carefully, Bonita. Your role in this company depends on being a team player. The strategy has already been circulated to the executive team under my name, and the board presentation is scheduled. Making an issue of this now would only reflect poorly on you. The threat was thinly veiled but unmistakable. Challenge me, and your career at Apex will suffer. I left the meeting in a daze and immediately sought out Taylor. After hearing what happened, Taylor was furious. This is outright theft. You need to go to HR immediately. Or better yet, go directly to Richard. He needs to know what's happening before that board meeting. She's an executive, Taylor. It's her word against mine, and she's already threatened my position here. Let me talk to some people, Taylor said. You're not the first person she's done this to. We might be able to build a case with multiple testimonies. Over the next few days, I discovered the full extent of Diana's actions. She had not only removed my name from all documents, but had also revoked my access to some of the files I had created. She had scheduled the board presentation for the following week and hadn't included me in the meeting invitation. The agenda listed her as the sole presenter of the Diana Harper Global Expansion Strategy. News of what was happening spread quickly through the company grapevine. Colleagues approached me in the break room and via private messages to express their support and outrage. Many confirmed that they knew I was the true author of the strategy, having witnessed my work firsthand over the past 6 months. Everyone knows it's your strategy, Bonita. Michael from product development assured me. Nobody's fooled by what she's doing. Sarah from legal was more pragmatic. Knowing and proving are different things in a corporate environment. You need concrete evidence that this was your work. As the reality of the situation sank in, I experienced a roller coaster of emotions. Initially, there was shock and disbelief that someone could be so brazen. This gave way to intense anger. I fantasized about exposing Diana publicly, watching her career implode. Then came fear. What if she succeeded? What if this massive project that represented the pinnacle of my professional achievement was credited to someone else? Finally, as the board meeting approached, I felt a creeping sense of defeat. I considered resigning before the presentation. Why stay at a company where such behavior was possible? I updated my resume and even spoke to a recruiter about potential opportunities elsewhere. The night before Diana's scheduled presentation, I barely slept. My career at Apex seemed to be crumbling, and the future I had worked so hard for was slipping away. But sometime in those dark early morning hours, a different perspective began to take shape in my mind. What if there was another way to approach this situation? What if, instead of fighting against Diana's presentation, I found a way to use it? That sleepless night became the turning point in how I approached this crisis. As I paced my apartment, fueled by coffee and righteous indignation, I began to see Diana's betrayal not just as a problem, but potentially as an opportunity if I was smart about it. Diana had one critical vulnerability. She didn't truly understand the strategy she was claiming as her own. Despite all her micromanaging and constant demands for updates, she had never fully engaged with the technical and nuanced aspects of the work. She had been focused on controlling the process, not mastering the content. By sunrise, my approach crystallized. I would let Diana present my strategy to the board, exactly as she planned. But I would make sure she had to answer for it, not just present it. I spent the entire day preparing meticulously. First, I gathered every piece of evidence that proved my authorship of the strategy. Email threads showing the development of key concepts, meeting notes where I had introduced ideas that Diana initially questioned but later appeared in the final strategy, early drafts with my comments and revisions, and even metadata from documents showing I was the original creator. I reached out to colleagues who had worked with me on various aspects of the project, asking if they would be willing to confirm my contributions if necessary. Many readily agreed, frustrated by what they had witnessed. Diana asked me about the Asian market entry sequence yesterday, confided Roberto from the international sales team. It was painfully obvious she didn't understand the rationale behind your approach. I gave her the simplest explanation I could. Next, I created a detailed document identifying potential questions the board might ask about the strategy, particularly focusing on areas where Diana's understanding was weakest. I knew from previous meetings that James Caldwell, our CFO, would likely probe deeply into the financial projections and ROI calculations, a section Diana had barely reviewed. Sofia Rodriguez would certainly ask about technology integration across different market requirements. These were complexities I understood intimately, but Diana had only superficial knowledge of. I also took a calculated risk by scheduling brief, seemingly routine meetings with two board members I had worked with previously. Without directly accusing Diana, I expressed my excitement about the global strategy coming to fruition and subtly emphasized my deep involvement in its creation. I made sure they understood I would be available for any detailed questions during or after the presentation. Finally, I requested a meeting with Richard Thompson, our CEO. This was perhaps the boldest move, but I kept the conversation strategic rather than accusatory. Richard, I wanted to make sure you know I'm available for any technical questions during Diana's presentation of the global strategy, I said carefully. Given my close involvement with the development process, I can provide detailed context if needed. Richard gave me a thoughtful look. I was actually wondering why you weren't listed as a presenter, Bonita. This has been your project from the beginning, hasn't it? His question suggested he already sensed something was off, but I maintained professionalism. Diana feels she's best positioned to present the executive summary. I'm comfortable supporting in whatever way is most helpful to the company. Richard nodded slowly. I'll make sure you're in that meeting. A strategy this important deserves to have all key contributors present. With that small victory secured, I returned to my desk to find Taylor waiting for me. Diana's in the conference room rehearsing her presentation, Taylor reported. She seems nervous. Word is getting around that she's presenting your work. Aren't you going to stop her? Taylor asked, clearly frustrated on my behalf. You have the evidence. You could go to Richard right now and lay it all out. I smiled, feeling calm for the first time in days. No, let her present. Taylor looked at me like I'd lost my mind. What? After everything she's done? I explained my reasoning. If I accuse her now, it becomes a messy, she said, situation. She's an executive with more institutional power than me. But if she presents a strategy she doesn't fully understand to a room full of experts who will ask challenging questions, I let the implication hang in the air. You're setting her up to fail, Taylor realized, a slow smile spreading across their face. I'm not setting her up to do anything, I corrected. She's set herself up by stealing work she doesn't understand. I'm just not saving her from the consequences of her actions. For the rest of the day, I calmly finalized my preparations, while Diana grew increasingly frantic, calling in various team members to explain different aspects of the strategy to her. I received reports that she was snapping at people when they couldn't simplify complex concepts to her satisfaction. By the evening before the board meeting, I had done everything possible to prepare. I reviewed the entire strategy one more time, ensuring I could address any question that might arise. I laid out a professional outfit for the next day. I even practiced maintaining a neutral, supportive expression for when Diana would inevitably struggle. I went to bed that night with a strange sense of calm. I might still lose this battle. Diana might somehow pull off the presentation and cement her claim to my work. If that happened, I was prepared to leave Apex and start fresh elsewhere, armed with lessons about corporate politics I wouldn't soon forget. But something told me that truth had a way of revealing itself, especially when complex ideas were involved. All I needed to do was create the right conditions and let events unfold naturally. As I drifted off to sleep, I found myself actually looking forward to tomorrow's board meeting. One way or another, this situation would reach its resolution. The morning of the board meeting arrived with an almost electric tension throughout the office. By now, most employees were aware of the situation, creating an awkward atmosphere as Diana strode through the office in her designer suit, portfolio clutched tightly in hand. I noticed she had arrived a full 2 hours early, presumably for last-minute preparation. I dressed with particular care that day, dark blue tailored suit, minimal jewelry, professional but confident. When dealing with executives, appearances matter, and I wanted to project competence and composure. I arrived at the office an hour early myself, calmly reviewing my notes one final time. At 9:45, 15 minutes before the scheduled meeting, I received a calendar update. Richard had added me to the board meeting invitation. Diana must have seen this too, because moments later she appeared at my desk, her carefully applied makeup not quite hiding her agitation. "Why are you invited to the board meeting?" she demanded, keeping her voice low but intense. I maintained a neutral expression. Richard thought it would be helpful to have me available for any technical questions that might come up. "I'm just there as a resource." "This is highly irregular," Diana said. "I've prepared this presentation carefully and don't need any assistance." "I'm sure your presentation will be excellent," I replied evenly. "I'm only there if the board needs specific details about implementation." Diana's eyes narrowed, but with other employees within earshot, she couldn't say what she clearly wanted to. She turned abruptly and walked away, pausing to compose herself before entering the executive wing. At precisely 10 o'clock, I walked into the boardroom. The space was impressive floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a massive mahogany table, and state-of-the-art presentation equipment. The board members were already seated, engaged in casual conversation. Richard sat at the head of the table, with James and Sophia on either side of him. 4 other board members, all accomplished business leaders in their own right, completed the assembly. Diana was connecting her laptop to the presentation system, looking confident on the surface, but with a tightness around her eyes that betrayed her tension. She glanced up when I entered, a flash of annoyance crossing her face before she composed herself. "Ah! Bonita," Richard called out. "Good. We're all here now. Diana is presenting the global expansion strategy, and Bonita is available for any technical details we might want to explore further." Diana smiled tightly. "I'm sure I can address any questions that arise, but yes, Bonita has been part of the team working on this." I took a seat at the far end of the table, opened my notebook, and waited patiently as Diana launched into her presentation. "Good morning, everyone," she began smoothly. "I'm excited to present the global expansion strategy I've developed over the past 6 months. This represents a comprehensive roadmap for Apex's international growth over the next 5 years. As Diana moved through the executive summary, I had to admit she was a polished presenter. She spoke with authority and navigated the slides with practiced ease. Had she actually understood the content she was presenting, she might have been convincing. The initial slides were broad enough strategic objectives, target markets, high-level timeline that Diana could discuss them without getting into details that might trip her up. The board members listened attentively, occasionally jotting down notes. Then came the first substantive question. "I notice you're proposing a sector-based entry rather than the traditional regional approach," James Caldwell observed. "Can you walk us through the financial modeling that supports this, particularly how it affects our cash flow projections in years 2 and 3? Diana hesitated for just a moment. "Yes, the sector-based approach allows us to leverage our existing expertise more efficiently. The financial models indicate improved ROI compared to a regional strategy. But what about the specific cash flow implications? James pressed. Your slides show a temporary negative cash flow in Q7 before recovering. What's driving that? I could see Diana scanning her notes, trying to find the answer. This was a detail I had modeled carefully, showing how our investment in financial sector security solutions would create a short-term cash drain before generating returns as we expanded to additional financial clients across multiple regions. That's related to our investment timing, Diana said vaguely. We need to make certain infrastructure investments before seeing returns. James frowned. Can you be more specific? That dip represents a $20 million cash flow issue. The board needs to understand exactly what's driving that and the mitigation plan. As Diana struggled to provide a coherent answer, Sofia Rodriguez jumped in with her own question. I'm interested in the technology adaptation strategy for Asian markets, she said. Your slides mention customization requirements for Japan versus Singapore, but don't detail the development resource allocation. How have you modeled the engineering hours and localization costs? Diana was now visibly uncomfortable. We've estimated appropriate resources based on market requirements, she offered weakly. Yes, but what methodology did you use? Sophia continued. Are we talking about core architecture changes or just interface localization? The resource implications are vastly different. The technical nature of these questions clearly exceeded Diana's grasp of the strategy. She began flipping through her notes more frantically, offering increasingly vague responses that failed to address the specific points raised. Richard Thompson, who had been quietly observing until now, leaned forward. Diana, I noticed this strategy proposes a novel approach to the Japanese financial sector as an entry point. What specific insights led to that recommendation? This was my breakthrough realization, the one that had come to me at 3 a.m. after weeks of research. There was no way Diana could answer this authentically. Diana fumbled through a generic response about market opportunity and existing relationships. Richard turned to me. Bonita, you've done extensive research on the Asian markets. Can you elaborate on this specific recommendation? This was my opening. I spoke clearly and confidently, explaining the parallels between North American banking security requirements and Japanese regulatory frameworks, the unique competitive landscape that created an opportunity for our specific solutions, and the potential for Japanese financial clients to serve as reference customers throughout the Asian market. The board members listened with growing interest, several nodding as I connected dots between different elements of the strategy. I was careful not to contradict Diana directly, but the contrast between my detailed understanding and her surface-level grasp became increasingly obvious. Diana attempted to reassert control. As I was guiding the development of this strategy, she interrupted. I identified several key opportunities, including the one Bonita just elaborated on. James Caldwell raised an eyebrow. The financial modeling behind this strategy shows remarkable depth. Diana, can you walk us through how you developed the market sizing model? It's quite sophisticated. Diana glanced at her notes again. We used standard market sizing techniques, adjusted for regional variations. But this isn't a standard model, James persisted. It incorporates a unique weighting system for security adoption factors that I haven't seen before. It's quite innovative. The room grew increasingly tense as Diana struggled through more questions, each revealing her limited understanding of the strategy she claimed to have created. Board members began directing their questions to me more frequently, and I provided clear, detailed responses without ever suggesting that Diana hadn't been involved. About 40 minutes into the presentation, the CFO asked the question that changed everything. Who actually developed this financial modeling framework? It's exceptionally thorough. Before Diana could respond, Sophia added, Yes, and the technical integration roadmap shows a deep understanding of our product architecture. Who on the team worked on that section? Diana's composure finally cracked. As the department head, I oversaw the entire process. Various team members contributed different elements under my direction. Richard fixed Diana with a steady gaze. Diana, I'm going to ask a direct question. Did you personally develop this strategy? Or was it primarily Bonita's work? The room fell silent. Everyone turned to Diana, whose face had grown pale. I directed the strategy development process, she insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. That's not what I asked, Richard said quietly. We value intellectual honesty at this company. Did you create this strategy, or did Bonita? Diana's expression hardened. Bonita provided research and drafts, which is her job. As the executive, I shaped and finalized the strategy. I finally spoke up. I have documentation showing the development of this strategy from concept to completion, including all early drafts, research notes, and revision histories. The entire strategy, including every innovative approach it contains, originated in my work. Richard turned to me. Can you share this documentation? I nodded and opened my laptop, connecting it to the presentation system. I calmly displayed a series of dated documents, email threads, and meeting notes that clearly traced the development of the strategy and my authorship of it. Taylor and several other colleagues had come prepared as well, having sent statements to Richard confirming their direct knowledge of my work on the strategy. Roberto from International Sales had provided a particularly damning email where Diana had asked him basic questions about concepts that appeared in her strategy just days before the presentation. Diana attempted one last desperate deflection. This is ridiculous. Bonita is trying to claim credit for my work because she's jealous of my position. She's been undermining me for months. James Caldwell, who had remained mostly professional throughout, couldn't contain his skepticism. Diana, you couldn't answer basic questions about a strategy you supposedly created. I've been in business for 30 years, and I know when someone understands their own work. Sophia nodded in agreement. The technical details in this strategy reflect months of deep research and innovative thinking. It's evident who truly mastered this material. Richard looked between Diana and me, then addressed the room. I think we need a brief pause in this presentation. Diana, I'd like to speak with you privately. The rest of us will reconvene in 15 minutes. As Diana followed Richard out, the remaining board members turned to me with expressions ranging from sympathy to admiration. Sophia approached me directly. That couldn't have been easy, she said quietly, but you handled it with remarkable professionalism. When Richard returned 15 minutes later, he was alone. His expression was somber but resolved. Diana will not be rejoining us today, he announced. Bonita, would you be willing to continue the presentation of your strategy? I nodded and took my place at the front of the room, bringing up the presentation on my laptop. Absolutely, I said. Let's continue with the detailed implementation timeline for year 1. For the next hour, I presented the strategy I had created, answering every question with confidence and clarity. The board engaged enthusiastically, asking challenging questions, but also offering genuine appreciation for the thoroughness and innovation of the work. When the presentation concluded, Richard asked me to stay behind while the other board members filed out, many stopping to congratulate me on the quality of the strategy. Bonita, Richard said when we were alone, I owe you an apology. This situation should never have occurred. Diana has been placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation. I want you to know that your work is recognized and valued here. I nodded, feeling a complex mix of vindication, relief, and lingering disappointment that such a situation had been allowed to develop at all. Thank you for the opportunity to present my work, I replied simply. This isn't the end of the conversation, Richard assured me. We'll be discussing next steps for both your career and the implementation of this strategy very soon. As I walked back to my desk, colleagues gave me knowing smiles and quiet congratulations. Taylor was waiting with a coffee and a triumphant grin. I heard Diana's been suspended, Taylor said. Word travels fast. How does it feel? I considered the question carefully. Honestly, I'm just glad the truth came out. The strategy is what matters most. It's good work that can really help the company grow. But despite my measured response, I couldn't deny the profound sense of justice I felt. I had faced a situation that might have derailed my career, and instead of running from it or being defeated, I had found a way to let the truth emerge on its own terms. The fallout from the board meeting was swift and significant. Diana remained on administrative leave for 2 weeks while HR conducted a thorough investigation. They interviewed everyone involved in the project, reviewed all documentation, and examined Diana's history at the company. The conclusion was unambiguous. Diana had deliberately attempted to claim credit for work she had not created. 3 weeks after the board meeting, Richard called me into his office to deliver the news personally. "Diana will not be returning to Apex," he said simply. "Her actions violated our core values of integrity and respect." The board was unanimous in this decision. I nodded, feeling neither joy nor regret, just a sense that justice had been served. "We would like you to officially lead the global strategy implementation," Richard continued, "with an appropriate promotion and compensation adjustment, of course. Your handling of this situation demonstrated not just strategic thinking, but the kind of leadership qualities we value at Apex." Within a month, I was appointed Director of Global Strategy Implementation, a new role that came with a 30% salary increase and a seat at the executive table. The position recognized both my work on the strategy and the professional way I had handled the attempted theft of my intellectual contribution. The response from my colleagues was overwhelmingly positive. Many reached out to express their admiration for how I had managed the situation. Instead of creating a dramatic confrontation, I had allowed Diana to reveal her own deception through her lack of understanding. It was a lesson in strategic thinking applied to a personal challenge. "You didn't just protect your work, you did it with class," Taylor told me over celebration drinks. "Nobody will forget that." The first few weeks in my new role were challenging in different ways. Despite the validation of my work, I found myself battling lingering feelings of insecurity and hypervigilance. I worried excessively about documenting everything and frequently sought confirmation that my contributions were being recognized. Taylor noticed this one day when I sent an unnecessarily detailed email outlining my contributions to a minor project update. "Bonita, you don't need to do this anymore. Everyone knows your work and respects it. Diana is gone." Taylor was right, of course. The wounds from Diana's betrayal were still healing, and I was overcompensating. Gradually, I learned to trust again, to share ideas openly without fear of theft. This healing didn't happen overnight. It took conscious effort and the consistent positive reinforcement of working with ethical colleagues who valued proper attribution. One of my first initiatives in the new role was to establish clearer protocols for collaborative projects, ensuring that contributions were transparently documented and acknowledged. Richard supported this fully, recognizing that what had happened to me could happen to others without proper safeguards. In the months that followed, I led the implementation of the global strategy I had created. We entered the Japanese financial market successfully, exactly as I had envisioned, and used that as a springboard for broader Asian expansion. The sector-based approach proved effective, allowing us to build deep expertise and referenceable clients more quickly than a scattered regional approach would have permitted. A year after the board meeting incident, I was invited to speak at a Women in Technology conference about both the strategy itself and the experience of having my work appropriated. It was challenging to discuss something so personal in a professional context, but I felt it was important to share what I had learned. The biggest lesson, I told the audience, wasn't about protecting my work, though that's certainly important. It was about trusting in the power of deep knowledge and authentic contribution. When you truly understand something you've created, when it represents your best thinking and dedicated effort, that creates a kind of ownership that can't be stolen simply by putting someone else's name on it. Many women approached me afterward with similar stories, some with happy endings like mine, others with painful outcomes that had derailed careers. I realized how fortunate I had been to work in a company where truth ultimately mattered, where expertise was valued over hierarchy. Not everyone is so lucky. The experience changed me in profound ways. I became more strategic in all aspects of my professional life, more aware of the importance of building allies and documenting contributions. But I refused to become cynical or territorial. Instead, I became a mentor to younger professionals, especially women, helping them navigate the complex dynamics of credit and recognition in corporate environments. Always do work so good that it speaks for itself? I would advise them. Build such deep expertise that no one can credibly claim your contributions as their own. And when challenged, respond with strategic thinking rather than emotional reaction. 3 years later, Apex Technologies has successfully established a significant presence in 12 international markets, with plans to expand to 8 more in the coming year. The strategy I created, tested in real-world implementation, and refined based on experience, has become a case study in effective global expansion. My name is firmly attached to it now, my contribution undisputed. Diana, I heard, found another executive position at a smaller company. I harbor no ill will toward her. In a strange way, her actions created an opportunity for me to demonstrate not just my strategic thinking, but my character and resolve. Without that challenge, I might still be in a mid-level position, my potential unrecognized. The experience taught me that professional growth comes not just from developing expertise and delivering results, but from how we handle adversity and injustice. Integrity, patience, and strategic thinking are as valuable as any technical skill or market insight. When facing betrayal or unfairness in your career, remember that reacting with emotion might feel satisfying in the moment, but responding with strategy leads to more lasting victory. Let your expertise speak for itself. Document your contributions. Build allies who know your work. And sometimes, when someone attempts to claim credit for your creation, the most powerful response is simply to let them try to explain it. Have you ever had your work or ideas taken without credit? How did you handle it, and what did you learn from the experience? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If you found value in my experience, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more authentic career stories. And remember, your greatest protection against those who would take credit for your work is to create work of such quality and depth that it unmistakably bears your signature, even when your name has been removed. Thank you for listening to my story.